ARTINQUIRY. My name is Gail Grover, and we're here today in the studio of LA artist Bob Boreman, who is going to demonstrate for us his special techniques with the monoprint process. Bob, how long have you been at this location?
Well, Gail, I've been here in this location, I think, 33 years, 1971.
Is that right? And where were you before that?
Before that, I was in San Francisco for a year in a warehouse. And
Really?
before that, I was up in Westwood in a business office that I closed my business and turned it into an art studio.
Wow. So you just kind of left all that material world behind and...
Not willingly.
Okay.
But yes.
That's probably the best way. All right. Would you explain the monoprint process to us and tell us what makes your work unique?
Okay. Well, the monoprint process is actually, the reason it's called a monoprint is it's a printing process where you take an image and you usually use a plate, either a plexiglass or some material. I'm using aluminum plates, and use a different, whatever kind of material on it, and you create an image. Then you take that image and you print it on a piece of usually rag paper in some kind of a press or in one form or another. And the fact that the plate doesn't have an image on it, like an etching plate, makes it you're not able to reproduce the image again. So that it's one-of-a-kind print. It's a print process, but there's only one of a kind.
So it's a one-shot deal.
It's a one-shot deal, and the print is an original piece of art.
Monoprint seems like such a simple way to produce a work of art. My own experience with that is that it may be simple, but it isn't as easy as it sounds.
Actually, I came about doing monoprints through a process of doing etching plates. And what happened was I started using roll-ups and split fountain roll-ups, in other words, where I could blend the colors and use solid plates in areas. And I found that I could change that roll-up by putting thinners in it and changing it. So that was the beginning of kind of getting into doing things to the plate. Eventually I dropped the etching part of the plate and just used plates, etching plates, and rolled them up and made images into them.
Oh, I see.
And the actual process is really simple. Where you run into problems is that things happen when you put this in a press because it gets a lot of pressure put on it. So the real problems are what you can and can't do as far as putting material on the plate, because if it's too thick it'll just ooze down the print and ruin the print. So most of the problems you have is how much oil you have in ink, in other words the viscosity of the ink, how much, I'm using extenders in the paint so I can put them on with spatulas. There's different techniques of putting the paint on the plate, or the ink, I should call it ink, but it's really oil-based etching ink, is what it is. So what happens is that if it isn't thin enough or it isn't the right viscosity, it won't print well.
I see.
And also in monoprints you lose a lot of detail. So part of the process that I use picks up more detail and gives me hard edge by taking ink off the plate and then putting it back on as a reversed image and cutting with knives to get hard edge and so forth. So that's part of the process that I use to not only make the image more interesting, but also to make it clean and to also get hard edge shapes that wouldn't happen if you didn't have some sort of process to do that.
Right. Now when you say you pull part of the print off, and then you put it back on basically, and that gives you hard edges, is that in the way you cut the paper, or is it also easier to print like a line with that technique?
Well, you get a line that actually happens in the plate itself. You can also etch a line into it with just a wooden stick or something and create a line. But of course, when you put a line in there, you're going down to the plate, which is white paper when it's printed because there's no ink on there. So you can create all sorts of line work in the plate, which I do by removing the inks. But also, sometimes you can take two pieces of torn or cut paper, put them in a juxtaposition, and the negative shape behind it becomes a line. And when you look at the print, you don't know that's how it's done. So you see a very hard-edged line that's maybe very, I guess you'd call, I'm not sure what the term is here, but it would be a very clean, straight line that actually looks like it's a positive image, and it's the negative, because it's created by two different pieces of paper being juxtapositioned. So
now this is unique to you. You discovered this.
I discovered that using newsprint and peeling off the image, basically because what I was trying to do is eliminate some of the thickness of the ink on there with newsprint, and then I found that I could cut it and put it back on the plate. But this was so long ago, I'm sure that this isn't, I'm not the only one doing this. I mean, this technique is probably used by a lot of different people that are making monoprint. It seems to be an obvious technique.
Is that because
but it's been very effective for me.
They discovered it for themselves, or they emulated
I'm sure
you?
that they teach it now somewhere. I don't know. Right now, monoprints don't seem to have the interest. There's not an interest for monoprints out there like there was in the late 70s and 80s. I only care about making art, and that's been my primary purpose all this time anyways, just to allow me to make more art, because that's what I enjoy doing. I love making monoprints and paintings.
Right.
I have no reason to reproduce them. As soon as I'm reproducing something, then I'm just a mechanic.
Right.
So
exactly.
I avoid reproduction and all this stuff. I'm just trying to make the original art.
Exactly.
I mean, I could care less.
Basically,
So.
I mean, I think that's the difference, because anybody can turn on a computer and maybe, you know, use an art program and, you know, turn out a piece of so-called art.
Yeah,
but
sure.
it doesn't have the same quality and value as an original piece, such as you're producing here, right?
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think a lot of this art is produced in a decorative way, and I think it serves its purpose. And you know, I have a very kind of, I'm not sure what goes on out there. I have a feeling that a lot of people that thought they were buying collectible art, so to speak, or thought they were in the art market to be, you know, to make money and so forth. As far as collecting, I think got a big jolt back in the early 90s when they found out they couldn't sell the piece that they had. And frankly, most architectural art out there and the stuff that happens is throwaway art. A lot of the printmaking processes that I've done, particularly in the past, were for more commercial markets, so I had to find out ways of making them, you know, quick. So I started out, when I first started out, with serography or silkscreen printing. So I started doing those, and I had some success. But it wasn't, I ran into another guy that was doing large etching plates and using really fast methods, and I learned how to do etching plates, and that's when I found my first success with galleries and with other people that were buying prints. Because all of a sudden I had, you know, a piece of artwork or a kind of print that people would pay money for and buy and then resell. So I started doing etching, and the only real problem with etchings is in 1 year I created about 6 or 7 images, and then I just kept printing those over and over and over, and I never made any more prints, and that was boring. And then I ran into the monoprint, and the monoprint was exciting enough and changed enough and altered enough that I could it held my interest, and the fact that the plate would always change, the colors would change, whatever I would do with it, I could do anything I wanted with the monoprint. And that kept my interest, and it kept my interest for about 18 years.
Monoprint seems to have a little more in common with painting than etching does, right?
Oh yeah.
It does for me.
Oh yeah, Etching's pretty mechanical as far as not the art part of it, the actual, you know, making the image on the plate, but yeah, the printing and all the rest of it is pretty much just the mechanics of what you're doing.
Right.
And this has some mechanics in it too.
Sure.
But it's very free. You know, it's constantly changing. I like it.
Okay.
This is an aluminum plate, probably about a 50 or 60 thousandths aluminum plate. I used to use an etching plate. It was a zinc plate. It was heavy and it wasn't necessary since there was no reason for it.
Right.
And this is an oil-based ink, and it's got some burnt plate oil in it. It's an etching ink, colored etching inks, and I use those large rollers here. And then I roll up on the table, on the glass, and then I roll the plate up, so I get these soft colors blending back and forth.
Right.
So now the first thing I'm going to do is take some ink off of here, so that I can apply some other inks that have actually they have some extenders in it.
Right.
An extender called Easy White, which goes in oil-based inks, okay?
Okay.
So I'll take this, I'll put some paint thinner on it. Also, there's some other things I can do too that are kind of interesting. I'm not sure how I did this. I think I took some off here. And maybe I'll pull this image in there, and I'll get an image like this. And we'll see if that works. So that's gonna. I'll let the paint thinner just kind of lay on the plate for a second. There's another material that's kind of. This is actually a thinner for rubber cement, but it just eats paint. So I can do this, and I'll get these drips in it, which is kind of neat. So anything that does something to this image is kind of exciting, even if it's kind of like if I pull this, you'll see I can pull some ink off now. Now I'm going to clear it down to the plate. I'm getting these shapes on the plate now. I'm pulling off the paint thinner. Now obviously I'm going to have to replace it with something, so I'll replace it with colors. But before I do that, now watch. I'll do some drawing in the plate so you can see what that's like.
Okay.
I'll come up here and I can make marks like that. Those will actually show in the print. Okay?
Okay.
So that becomes part of the print right there. Now I come over here and I'll get some of this color, this yellow. And this is kind of like a floral color, I guess. Floral, kind of abstract floral kind of thing. I can put some yellow in here, put some up here. Are you following me?
Yes.
I'll put some colors. Yes. I gotta put something down here. Now, this is just another color I mixed up. Each color. And I'm just doing this to get some color on the plate. Now I can change squeegees too. Here's another squeegee. It'll give a different texture. And I'll come over here and I'll get some other colors in there. I don't know if this is going to show on colors. And then it changes as it gets over into this area. You notice I can get these different kinds of textures and stuff.
Right.
Now from the other one, now see that I could make a line there. See how this line comes in?
Yes.
I could create a line there by doing this. Now I'm just adding ink over here because there's no ink on the plate because the roller wasn't big enough. So I can do that. Put some ink in here. Go up here, and I can leave a white line there if I want. Do this. So I'm just kind of designing as I go along and see what happens. Now I need some darker colors, so I'll come over here to this green. This will be more like that. So I can get some darks in the print. And you notice I work real fast, so I don't think too much about what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
I just work spontaneous.
And you find that works best for you?
For me, it's the only way to go.
Do you work that fast when you paint?
Sometimes, yes, I do. My paintings are quick. Doesn't mean the painting is fast, it just means that sometimes I prefer to work fast. Now, I'm going to use some real dark in here, and I do that just to really give it an accent. So it'll make it see now that's almost a black.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull some of those colors in through here. Over in here, use some dark. There. Now, one other thing I can do, I'm going to put a shot of real bright red in it. It's got a lot of, it's almost an orange. This is really an accent. Okay, I need another one over here. Something down in here. There.
That really makes it pop.
Oh yeah. I could make it more complicated, but I think that's enough for this.
Uh-huh. Now what's going to happen to these areas that have no...
They'll be white.
Okay.
And actually, after the print's finished, I can go in with pastels and I can color some of those, so I don't have to have all the whites in the piece after I get done.
Right.
I mean, the last thing I do is curate the print, and then I put pastels in it.
Uh-huh.
You know, to soften some of the whites and stuff. Because anywhere you see gray here on the metal plate, that's going to print white.
Right.
Now what I'm going to do is try and pull off some of this ink. See, because this is too thick up here. There's some thick spots that will run. Now see, I can take my thumb in here and just do that. Pull off some of the ink. It doesn't hurt to print. There's one here. I mean, this is, you're not gonna damage things. You can get lines like this with your fingernails. Nothing's good for it. You see what I mean?
Right.
Now I come over to a chunk of newsprint here, and I'm going to use this to pull some of the ink off. And it's also going to end up as part of the print. This will be part of the artwork when I'm done. So I take this and I lay it on here. I didn't plan on it wrinkling, but I don't care. It's not going to make much difference. I come over here. See, that's a lot of ink. Now I can do this. Changes the image, but there'll be a hard edge right there because I wiped it off.
Right.
And I can come over here with a little piece. If I want. And pull a little bit of this ink off, like up here. This will also it'll show on the background. I'm not sure I like this line in there, but I'm going to leave it. So now I'm pulling. There's you can see there's part of the image on the paper. I'm going to take it over to the other table and cut some shapes out of this and put it back on the print and see what I can do with it. So here we go. There's a whole, it's actually printed on this paper. So I'm going to come over here. Now, I'm going to cut some shapes out of here. Now this is one I like just because I can get a, see now that'll be a white line on the edge of that. And I just kind of like a simple shape in here. So I'm going to cut a shape right here. Now I'm going to use that somewhere on the print. I'm not sure where. Now that's created some other stuff. This is all could actually be like a floral kind of thing here. And it's amazing. You don't really need too much of this stuff to make it. I can use this negative shape in here too. Like this. And there's that wrinkle. See that wrinkle?
Right.
So I'll go ahead and use that. And I've got some stuff here. This is all a light colored area from the other print. I kind of like this little leafy thing here because that looks like a flower. So I'm going to cut this like this and make a flower out of it. Okay. Now the paint. So I'm just kind of finding these shapes now. I want some of this in there. I'm not sure how I'm going to use it, but there's another little piece. Well, whoop. Cut it off here. There's another piece I can use on the print. Okay, there's a whole flower shape right there. I'll start with that one. See, it doesn't have to be perfection here. You can be pretty sloppy with it. I hope this doesn't wrinkle the paper, that wrinkle in there. Let's see what happens. Also, I got to cut these off. I'm going to move back and forth because I'm going to put some of this on the other plate. See, I bring it in over here, and the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to, what that's going to do, it's going to, I can actually use this piece along with it. See this?
Right.
And what I can do is I can do, now there's a line the kind of line I was talking about. We have a line created by two pieces of paper.
Right.
I can pull this up in here somewhere if I want. Now what I'm doing is I'm trimming the paper along the edge too. So I'm going to print it on a full-size white sheet of paper, so this will make a clean print. You can add these anywhere. I could put this down here, for instance, just a chunk of color. This might be nice. Just put a little piece of fragment of it in this area and cut it off.
That red in there is nice too.
Now that's pretty much all I want to do to this plate. I think I've got enough detail on it. So now we'll just go over and I'll put a line right here and print it. So now I'm just going to take this over to the press. I actually have a piece of paper under here, under this piece of acetate that describes what the shape is, the size of the paper, and I got some lines drawn out so I can register this here. I'm going to lay this right on here, and then I'm going to put a piece of rag paper on it and print it. So there's our print. Sulfur paper and water. That's what that big water does. Now I'm going to roll it up so I can handle it. Big paper, this is the way you do it. Now I'm going to go over and put this on the press. The paper on the press and line it up with the paper underneath. Now I'm going to put this newsprint on top of this just because I don't want all this water going into the blankets because they shrink when they get wet. So this is a regular etching press, and it applies a lot of pressure to it. So we've had pretty good success. I tried cleaning one right before this didn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through the press. This is the newsprint. Okay, there's my print. You can even see that it's kind of slightly embossed. There's the print. You see it? Look really good. See, it's exact image plot. When I get to the end, I got to back up real fast. There. Now I've got a print. Here's the print.
This is the negative space that you were talking about, right, between those two.
Yeah, I had another one that even worked better. I'm not sure where it is. What did I do? I don't know. Anyway, that's yeah. Oh, here's one up here.
Okay.
But the problem is the values and the colors are too similar, so it doesn't show that much. You can see that all these white lines in here, that's where the ink was just scraped off the plate.
Right.
And it gives it a lot of detail, a lot of interest.
Yeah,
So,
that's where you'll go back in with the pastels.
I can, if I, sometimes intuitively I leave enough of those that it looks good the way it is, but then I can soften some or change the colors. Like I can put like a pink pastel in here and soften this. Or I can put blue greens in part of this, and I can add just a little bit of color or pull some color up in one of these.
Right.
So yeah, I can now hand do the rest of it. I used to try and cover up these kind of dimple marks, but now I've got some pastels that are so close to that I can just touch those up if I don't like them.
Right.
And basically this is a really nice print. I like it. And you know, now that's a typical fine art. This is a piece of real art, you know. Now if this was done in a computer, it would be absolutely perfect. There would not be any, you wouldn't see any bleed across the edge like this little black. You wouldn't see this little bump here. Everything is precision perfect, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
It just isn't as nice as the original pieces. You know?
No.
So this is a handmade original print.
Right.
Printed on a really nice high quality rag paper with inks that are as color fast as any you can buy anywhere. It's etching inks. They're very saturated in color as far as the pigment and so forth, and a really good binder. So this is a quality print.
You've recently been taking students on. How has that been for you? What's that experience like?
Well, that's been really interesting because I've always had the feeling, a lot of the printmaking processes that I've done, particularly in the past, were for a more commercial market, so I had to find out ways of making them, you know, quick. 91, everything kind of fell apart, and what happened was I wanted to do some large paintings, so I started doing large paintings. I think there's one behind you.
Oh yes,
I've been doing large paintings since then. And now my ideas are changing again. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but when I started the class, I started teaching print methods. I didn't even get into that. What I wanted to see if I could take people through a process and have them come out with a finished, you know, print that would look good, and I felt I could.
Right.
So, and I didn't have any idea whether I wanted to teach or not. So I got a few people together that I knew that were artists and asked them if they wanted to do a class thing. And we did that, and I took them through an etching plate. We did real fast methods like spray paints for aqua tints and this sort of thing. You know, we used zinc plates and acid etched them, and we came out with some really nice prints and had a little art show afterwards. And it was great fun. I enjoyed it. So then I started another class with monoprints, which you're in that class, and you're in the middle of that one. So, you know, I'm not sure where that's going to go, but, you know, it's starting to, you know, everybody's starting to get a hold of the process and start to make some decent prints. So that's kind of exciting. Right. But this is all an experiment to me. I didn't know I was going to teach, and I didn't know I was going to like it. So, but it got me back into printing a little bit. So now here I am.
You feel you may go in that direction again. You may.
I don't know. I really don't know. mostly what I've learned is about teaching.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's been such an experience for me to do that, and the fact that I have all these other artists in my studio doing these things, and actually it's been really fun. I really enjoy it.
Yes,
and
I think
it
it
did
has
kind of
too.
open me up.
Right.
You know, but it's like, and it got me more back kind of interested in what I you know, my expertise is, which is printmaking. So,
Right.
so it's been really good for me. I've made these monoprints for so long. I've got it down to where, you know, it's very refined as far as what techniques I use and what I'm going to do to the plate. I don't experiment too much anymore.
Right, right.
So,
It may
yeah, I
hold
learned
some
some things.
surprises for you,
Yeah, I think so.
even after all this time. Okay.
Mhm.